inserting a landscape page, then returning to portrait, plus tips for working with headers, footers, and section breaks. Before inserting a landscape page, you should make sure you save your document as it currently is, and then save it as a new version in case we need to revert to the previous one. Now you can either go to File and Save As, or I have a shortcut in my Quick Access toolbar, and I'm just going to make it V2 for version 2. Something else you should do before you start playing with section breaks is turn on the paragraph marks or the formatting marks. So from the Home tab within the paragraph group, you've got the backwards P or the Pilcrow, and that will let you see all the formatting marks. Now you don't have to work with these on all the time, but if you're trying to figure out what's going wrong in a document, or certainly going to play with section breaks, you need to turn these paragraph marks on. So I have a page labelled Current Portrait. I've got some blank lines. I'm going to add some additional blank lines to begin with. It's always a lot easier to go back and delete blank lines that you don't need than try and insert things in the wrong spot and have to fix it later. So if I've clicked on, say, the 4th blank line, now I need to actually insert my page break. So from the Layout tab within the Page Setup group, Breaks drop down and then Next Page. And we can see it's added it in here. Now I'm going to label this page as Landscape, so it's easier when I need to convert it after. I'm going to add some more blank lines, and then in this case, I want to return to a portrait page, so I need to add another section break. So Layout tab, Page Setup, Breaks, and then Next Page. I'm going to label this one Back to Portrait, just so it's easier to work with. So whilst I'm on this final page, I'm going to double click over the header to enter the header and footer area. Now while I'm here, I can actually see this is actually in a hidden table. So I'm not seeing any invisible cell margins here. So whilst I'm clicked on it, from the Table Layout tab, I have View Gridlines. That can be a good idea to have those on, just so you can see any hidden tables or invisible cell margins. Now, I'm currently in section 3, so just make sure you are in the section you think that you're in. And I'm on that header and footer tab. Now, if this different first page is ticked, make sure you untick it first. I'll show you another example regarding this shortly. Now we want to click Linked Previous. We want to deselect it. So this, in section 3, is no longer linked to section 2. Now we need to do the same for the footer within section 3. So I'll just click in there and I want to unlink it from the previous one. Now I've done that on this Back to Portrait page, but I need to do it also on the landscape page as well. So I want to click in this header. In this case, for me, it is section 2. Again, check if that different first page happens to be ticked. Make sure it's not. We want to unlink it from the previous, and we need to do it again in the footer area. So none of the headers and footers are linked with each other, which is what we require in this instance. But note that if you made any changes here, in either of them, you would have to remake the changes in the various sections because now they are not linked. So I can either close header and footer here or just press the Escape key on my keyboard. So now we want to make this page become the landscape page. So make sure you're clicked on it. And then we want to go to the Layouts tab, Orientation, and then Landscape. So I have my current portrait, I have my landscape page, and I have my Back to Portrait page. So that part has worked. We can see on the landscape page, because this was a table and it was set to 100% width, it has expanded for us, which is great, but it looks a little bit off. And that's because for some reason, when Word converts it, it doesn't convert all the page margins for us properly. So we still need to fix that up. So when we're on this landscape page, if we go to the Layout tab, Page Setup, the little dialog box launcher in the bottom right corner, and we can see this is flipped. Top, bottom, left, and right. So now we need to convert them We know we're going to need the header as the 2.9 centimetres, the bottom will be the 1.8 centimetres, left will be 2 and right will be 2. Okay, if for some reason you're going to have a really large table, well, you could set this left and right margins to be, say, 1.5 centimetres, just so that you had a little bit more space for the table. And it's applied only to this section, that's why we were clicked in it, and click OK. Now we can see the header and the footer looks much better. If necessary, I might need to drag this over just to make sure there was more room here and check that everything is still aligned neatly here. Okay, that's all going to fit. So I can press Escape to get out. So I could zoom out, so Control plus scroll towards you will zoom out. And I can see that's all looking pretty neat and nice. And if I do a print preview, so you can either go to File and Print or just press Control P on your keyboard. I've got my first page. This one here makes it the right size. I've got this one, and this one. So in theory, that's all looking good. But what we can notice down here, this says page 1, and page 1. So we actually need to fix how the page numbering is working. So to get out of this screen, I can either press that back button or just press the Escape key on my keyboard. And I'll zoom back in again, so Control, and then scroll the mouse wheel away from me. I might go a fair bit further in just so we can see what's going on. So this is page 1, so that's correct. On this landscape page, I want to double click into the footer. And if I click on that one, I can actually see it is a field. And again, if you're not zoomed in, you might need to zoom in just so you can see it properly. I now need to right click and then Format Page Numbers. I don't want to start this section at 1. I want to continue from the previous section and click OK. And now that's updated to 2. But because they're all separate from one another, I'm going to have to go and do that again. So on my Back to Portrait page, again, click, I can see the field. I'm going to right click, Format Page Numbers, continue from the previous section, and OK. And now it has 3. I can press Escape to get back out. I'll zoom back out a little bit. That's looking pretty good. We'll do Control P Print Preview. We've got page 1, page 2, and page 3. Now that's much better and it's working. Let's have a look at another example. Again, before we make any changes, we should always save our document and then save as a new version just so we can revert to the previous one if necessary. Also, from that Home tab, make sure your paragraph or formatting marks are showing so you can see what's going on in your document. Now in this example, different first page is set. We can see that because there's a page break here. It's not a section break, but we have a different first page. And if I were to print preview, Control P, I can see that it's different. Let's leave some additional blank lines like before, and we go to Layout, Breaks, Next Page. I'm going to label this page as my landscape page. Leave some more blank lines. Click on the 4th one, and Layout, Breaks, Next Page Break. This one is going to be my Back to Portrait page. So I have set these section breaks. Now at this point, if you didn't want to return to a portrait page, this is where you wouldn't have added the additional section break. You would have just leave it as landscape and then the rest of the document would remain as landscape. So now we want to double click into the header. In this case, we can see it doesn't actually have a table. It's been set differently within this document, and we'll take note of that shortly. In this case, we want to make sure we untick this different first page, or otherwise, in all these sections, we're going to continue to have the first page within the section be the different look, and then the rest of the pages that second look. So we want to untick different first page first, and then we want to unlink it from the previous one. We go back to the footer and we unlink that too. Now we want to, on the page that's going to be the landscape page, remember we had a separate page the first time, so it'll be this one. We want to untick that different first page first because I only wanted it at the very start of the document, not in the middle. And now I want to unlink it from the previous, so it's deselected, and do it again within the footer. I can press escape to get out of there. That's looking pretty good so far. I want to now turn my landscape page into landscape, layout, orientation, landscape. Do a quick preview to see so far. Is this making sense? Portrait, portrait, landscape, back to portrait. This looks weird, doesn't it? But this is because, and that the headers and the footers haven't updated, those margins are switched around. So when we're on the landscape page, we want to go to Layout, the little dialog box launcher in the bottom right, and then we need to switch all these margins back. So the bigger one will be at the top, that's the 2.7, the bottom will be 1.7, the left will make 2 centimetres, and the right will make 2 centimetres. Again, we make sure it's only applying to this section and click OK. Now that's looking much better. Now, if we go back into the header, just double click, we can see that this isn't using those tables, we use tab stops. So for up the top here, I'm just going to click the tab stop and drag it over to the side. Now, if you're not seeing this ruler, on the View tab in that Show group, that's where you can toggle the ruler on and off. So the top one's looking pretty good. Let's go down to the footer. We can see these tab stops are where they should be set for the portrait pages. Now, normally I would say to go and modify the actual style for header and footer, but we don't want to change that here because we don't want to change it for all the pages, just this landscape page. So if we click in the footer, I'll drag that one over to the side. I'm going to move this center tab stop to roughly where the center is, somewhere there-ish, but we could probably check that. So on the Layout tab in that paragraph group, you've got the little dialog box launcher in the bottom right. That's the same one as the Home tab paragraph group as well for reference. Down the bottom, there is a Tabs button. So where I live, we use A4 paper, and we obviously use the metric system as well. But a page is 29.7 centimetres wide. If I have a 2 centimetre margin, that means my right one here needs to be at 25.7 centimetres because it's less 4 centimetres. So that one, set as a right margin, is correct. I don't need to change that. The middle one, because I used a calculator, tells me that it needs to be at 12.85 centimetres. So it's pretty close where we estimated. But if I want to make it specific, I can make it 12.85 centimetres. It's set as centre, and I'm going to set it. And I'm going to then make sure the one I don't want, I just clear that particular one and click OK. And now that's perfectly centred. If I want to check that at the moment, I've got my page 1, my page 2. They're moved apart. Uh-oh. We've got that page numbering issue again. So you always go and check it's working the way you think it's going to work. So again, zoom in so you can actually see things properly. Double click into the footer. Find the field, right click, format page numbers, continue from previous section. Scroll down, and in that returned one, right click, format, and it's now page 4. Escape, print preview, Control P. Now I've happily got my first page with the nice fancy look. Page 2, page 3 is landscape, and page 4. Now, just to point out something to you, in all of them, if I were to change this date here, let's say it was now December, I've amended it, but it's only amended in section 1 to December. It hasn't changed the rest. because this isn't a linked field that's automatically updating and my sections are now separate, I'm going to need to manually amend that in the footer. So be careful in your documents to always go and double check. Same if you've changed the header, you'll have to change it in each section because they are no longer linked. Please like this video if you found it helpful and subscribe to our Help Me Format YouTube channel to discover more tips and tricks.